Sal Galberde, 2Cream CEO, is talking about Ripple and XRP possibly replacing Swift. I want to play the clip. We also have Mikkel here talking about XRP connects financial institutions and boosts neutral liquidity. Black Swan Capitalist also has a clip here. Chainlink and Swift updates only patch legacy systems. You still need XRP. I want to talk about this because a lot of people are saying XRP is finished and Chainlink is the key. You're still going to need XRP for settlement. We also have a ton of other news around Ripple and XRP we're going to get into. Let's start here.
Biggest XRP catalyst that you think will happen? I mean, the banking license one, sure, for Ripple. Obviously, we've already seen quite a few, but there's also involvement in potentially a Swift movement in terms of cross-border payments. What would be your catalyst that you think would move the market?
I think those are both catalysts. I think that it's hard to say if they get approved as a bank and then announce they're not going to sell any more XRP onto the market because they want to capitalize the bank. I think that would be an enormous for price. That's gigantic. But then I think as Swift breaks down and ISO 222, I think that they're not projecting Swift to use it for a few years yet to be totally compliant with that. Whereas I think that when Ripple flips all the switches and all these NDAs they talk about come alive, and when you start seeing banks announce, we did this much on the blockchain ledger in terms of moving your money, and we did this much on Swift, and the Swift is going down and blockchain's going up. I think that's a big deal. And there's another point to be made here for the economy as a whole. Most people don't understand that banks have to keep capital in both places. If you want to send money from Miami to Tokyo, okay, banks have to have money in Tokyo and money in Miami under the current system. That all goes away. All that capital is going to be freed up with the blockchain. That's going to burnish the bank's balance sheets even more. But more so, they're going to be able to loan money. They're going to be able to finance their trading desks. It's going to open up so much capital to economic growth in general around the globe. It's a wonderful thing. The blockchain is literally going to open up value because it's going to unlock a lot of frozen money on the bank's balance sheets. And that's really important. Nobody seems to be talking about that.
Nobody seems to be talking about that. That is all we do on this channel is talk about that. Anyways, let's go ahead. We gotta understand some stuff here, okay? Sal said something here that made my stomach turn a bit.
And ISO 222, I think that they're not projecting Swift to use it for a few years yet to be
okay. That made my stomach turn a little bit because that is not quite accurate. So is Swift using ISO 20022? Yes, Swift is currently using ISO 20022 as part of a phased migration plan. Since March 2023, Swift has supported both legacy MT messages and of course ISO 20022 messages during a coexistence period. The full transition known as the Big Bang migration will occur on November 22nd, 2025. So what he's saying there was a lot of great points, but there was also some stuff that he's probably not well versed in. So you should probably stay away from those topics, right? Because Swift is currently using it. And by November 22nd, 2025, that is the period where all of these banks, 80 to 90% of banks will be using ISO 20022. So not quite accurate. All good though. It's like sometimes you're like listening for something else and your brain just doesn't fully recognize something yet. And then you hear it again and you're like, wait a second, we just need to clarify some facts on that. I think that's valuable that we can be upfront as well as fact checking things in real time. And maybe it helps you better understand how I would look at something really quickly just to figure out if something is one way or another. I've actually got my wife now fully addicted to using Perplexity. She used to like Google everything. Now she does it. She told me yesterday, she's like, I use Perplexity for everything now. And I was like, yes, I got you. All right, let's keep it going.
And ultimately, they are going to want to keep those denominated units of value. They're not going to get rid of their bonds. They're still going to have JP Morgan coin. They're still going to have all these different things internal. But the real power of XRP comes when connecting JP Morgan to other financial institutions. Because Bank of America isn't going to want JP Morgan's assets, and JP Morgan's not going to want Bank of America's assets. Where XRP sits is not a way for JP Morgan and Bank of America to ping XRP back and forth between each other, but instead create neutral liquidity between both different financial institutions so that they can interact with one another without having to trust one another. XRP creates the liquidity between all these different assets. And what Ripple is doing is been onboarding these financial institutions, understanding what these financial institutions are going to need to interact with these blockchain systems, and building compliance, security, and professionalism into the XRP ledger.
Interesting that you would use the example of JP Morgan and Bank of America, because we know JP Morgan is committed to using Ethereum products at this time. I've seen no mention or conversation about XRP. Maybe it was just the example between those two banks. Fair enough. Good information from Mikko there. I know a lot of people watch his channel. And so it's really cool that, Mikko and I are kind of doing similar views right now in our videos. And I think people kind of like both of our channels. So I always like to highlight him and his work because I think he does a really good job. And man, I know how much hard work goes into creating all of this content, and my man does a great job. So if you haven't checked out Mikko's channel, you should do that. He's a good guy. Cross-border spending made simple. Straits is laying the foundation for stablecoin infrastructure that makes global payments feel local. Whether you're holding funds, traveling abroad, or making purchases, you can use the same wallet with the same currency, no conversion, no friction. The reason I'm playing this is built on the XRP ledger. I will play the clip and I will explain more in detail.
What's unique about us is that we are both a digital payments company, but also a stablecoin issuer, which in today's DNA of the ecosystem that you see, there's hardly any company that has the same narrative that we do. Our use case and our offering that we bring to the market is fundamentally based on the fact that we believe very strongly that the future ahead in the world of payments is something that needs to comprehend both the essence of traditional payment methods, but also embracing the future of where payments needs to be. And we believe very strongly that stable coins and traditional fiat payments need to come together hand in hand to deliver that end-to-end state solution down the road.
Okay, really quickly, let me just give you some more information on this man's company, StraitsX. Okay, StraitsX is a Singapore-based fintech company specializing in regulated stablecoin infrastructure at scale. Their platform is designed to make cross-border payments seamless for consumers and businesses by issuing stablecoins like XSGD, which is a Singapore-based dollar, and XUSD, a US dollar, and XIDR, an Indonesian rupee, all asset-backed regulated under Singapore's Monetary Authority, MAS. StraitsX role in stablecoin infrastructure. We talked about that a little bit. If you want to catch up here, there's some information. But here are the benefits for XRP and RLUSD. StraitsX launched XSGD on the XRP ledger in May 2025, representing a major partnership with Ripple to enable regulated real-time cross-border payments in Singapore dollars on a scalable blockchain purpose-built for tokenization. Now, what I want you to focus on here, this is another country, another company building a stablecoin on the XRP ledger. Why? Because look at all of the use cases, and you can basically go from Singapore dollar into any currency traded on the ledger. That is the vital piece of the puzzle here, right? The interoperability of all of these assets, right? Wait until you get like tokenized securities and this and this and this. You're going to be able to sell that into any cryptocurrency or any currency on the XRP ledger. That is what we're talking about here. True power in interoperability. Developers and financial institutions can leverage SGD and XRP together for instant compliant value in Asia and beyond, bringing programmable money to the real world global commerce. This expands XRP Ledger's multi-asset stablecoin support, making it possible to settle FX and use XRP as a bridge asset. Remember, Ripple and the XRP Ledger now cover 90% of the FX market. The FX market is 7.5 trillion a day. That is probably going to go to 10 trillion over the next few years, 5 to 10 years. $10 trillion a day. Think about if XRP was used to do all of those FX transactions. You are talking about a lot of money moving on the XRP ledger if in fact they decide to do that. The reason, the benefits would be instant settlement, right? Anything to any currency to any currency, and bringing the cost down to facilitate all of that trade by billions of dollars per year, right? Some of these banks and financial institutions are going to take a haircut because of their rails are kind of, useless at this point going forward, because why would you use legacy rails and pay all this extra money when you can use blockchain? It's a fraction of the cost. So they're going to be able to lower the bar of entry when you're sending these type of XF payments. You're going to lower how much money they're going to make, but it's also going to lower how much money they can, have to be charged to move that money. Anyways, Black Swan Capitalist Verson posted Chainlink and Swift updates only patch legacy systems. They don't solve the underlying inefficiencies of global scale or scale global liquidity the way the XRP ledger does. XRP isn't competing with updates. It's replacing the system in real-time frictionless infrastructure. Just to give you a little bit of backstory here and some information, Chainlink and Swift. Chainlink's role with Swift is primarily about connecting the existing legacy financial institutions, about 11,000 banks, to public and private blockchains through Chainlink's cross-chain interoperability protocol. This is why I tell people, Chainlink, Take a look at Chainlink. I've been telling you this for years. This means banks can send data and interact with blockchain networks without needing to rebuild or abandon their current messaging infrastructure. It's an upgrade or patch. The system remains with added blockchain compatibility for things like tokenized assets, settlement, and messaging. These updates allow features like blockchain wallet addresses and tokenized asset fields to be included in Swift messages, introducing some new efficiencies, but building on the old framework. Swift doesn't primarily settle value. It's about messaging and instructions between financial institutions. XRP replacing legacy settlement with frictionless infrastructure. XRP's approach is fundamentally different. It's designed to provide real-time, low-cost, and frictionless liquidity and settlement globally instead of simply bridging legacy banks to blockchains. XRP can act as both a bridge asset and a settlement layer, enabling direct instant movement of money across borders without intermediaries. Legacy messaging delays or pre-funded accounts. This is why proponents say XRP isn't competing with tech patches. It's providing a replacement for slow, expensive legacy rails. That is pretty interesting to get those connections to better understand why Chainlink is vitally important, but also why XRP is super vitally important. You basically need the Chainlink to connect these legacy systems to the new systems, but then you also need a settlement layer. Chainlink isn't designed to be a settlement layer. That is where XRP comes in. And we did see some collaboration and work between Chainlink and Ripple earlier this year. So we'll have to see how that unfolds. Now, Cointelegraph posted this: US Treasury is considering adding digital ID checks to DeFi smart contracts. And this made me think of Ripple and XRP, of course, right? Because that is what they have been working on. So let me just go through this with you. The US Treasury's move to consider adding digital IDs to DeFi smart contracts, part of the Genius Act in July 2025, could create important benefits for Ripple and XRP by aligning them with emerging regulatory standards and opening new opportunities for compliant institutional and retail adoption. Here's a breakdown of context and potential positive impacts. Key context: US Treasury digital ID proposal. Digital ID verification may become required for DeFi smart contracts, enabling automatic know your customer and anti-money laundering checks before transactions execute. This effort aims to reduce illicit finance risk while strengthening privacy through decentralization, digital credentials systems. Solutions include APIs, AI, government issued IDs, biometrics, and portable digital credentials. Ripple and XRP's potential benefits: institutional adoption. Firms and banks prefer platforms with strong compliance safeguards. Ripple's existing focus on regulatory engagement, supporting KYC, AML, and other on-demand liquidity corridors and XRP ledger enhancements positions it as a ready partner for regulated DeFi and payments. XRP Ledger's DID, which is Decentralized Identity Amendment XLS 40, active since October 2024, allows user-led digital identity management, meaning the XRP Ledger ecosystem can quickly comply with new digital ID requirements. This can attract institutions wary of regulatory risks to seek compliant DeFi solutions. Competitive edge in cross-border payments. Automated KYC and AML via smart contracts can lower compliance overhead with global transactions. Ripple's payment systems, built to facilitate cross-border settlements, stand to benefit by integrating seamless digital ID checks, improving speed and trust for banks and corporates, enhance privacy controls that do not rely on centralized authorities. Focus on XRPL did update, address both regulators and users' concerns, providing a solution that balances compliance and user protection. Anyways, the XRP Ledger is built to handle this, so we'll see if that does play out. The SEC delays decisions on True Social's Bitcoin Ethereum ETFs alongside XRP, and so the Block put this out. Remember, the Block did a hit piece recently on Ripple and XRP. But I just did want to show you this. The U.S. Securities and Executive Exchange Commission punted the decision on whether to approve an exchange-traded fund issued by True Social, a social media platform operated and owned by Donald Trump and his media company here. The SEC marked October 8th as the next deadline for True Social's Bitcoin and Ether, according to a filing we made on Monday. 2 more delays were also filed on Monday for CoinShares Litecoin ETF and ETF for 21 shares for the core XRP ETF later in October. Why do you think they keep punting this down the road? It's interesting, right? Are they just going to do it all at once? Are they gathering all the applications to just, have one day where they rubber stamp all of this stuff? Are they having active conversations about these products, right? We already have spot Bitcoin, spot Ethereum products on the market. So why hold the president's company's, decisions I don't quite understand that. That's why I'm just trying to think out loud here and ask you maybe what you think. I'd love to better hear what do you think that could be. Anyways, guys, I didn't want this video to drag on. I wanted to just give you those updates of what's going on in the crypto space. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you can like the content, you can share it with a friend, you could turn the bell notification on to get more of my content, any of that stuff. I'd really appreciate it. Only subscribe to the channel if you get value from the content. I just don't want you to subscribe just for the hell of it. I really want you to like this channel. And if you're not getting value, please don't subscribe. All right. Aloha.